El 7 de julio de 2017, 122 países votaron a favor del Tratado sobre la prohibición de las armas nucleares. Votaron por la prohibición los países que no tienen armas nucleares, pero viven bajo su amenaza. Sin que la mayoría de sus ciudadanos lo supieran, no votaron los gobiernos de las grandes potencias nucleares y, sin embargo, la prohibición salió adelante. Algo nuevo estaba ocurriendo.
So the humanitarian initiative was really a way to challenge the mainstream security discourse that treat these as tools of international security, the language of deterrence, treating these weapons as something that prevents conflict, instead of actually examining them for what they are.
The focus changed from tools of security and stability to human beings are destroyed. Nuclear weapons are catastrophic to humanity and catastrophic to life on this planet.
After all, it's the people who suffer, and this has been forgotten in our debate.
Now, we today have a massive body of evidence that a nuclear war would simply not only not be winnable, it would likely destroy life on Earth as we know it today.
I mean, basically, I think we face an incredibly dangerous situation. I think if we don't get rid of these weapons, they are going to get rid of us. And everything that we cherish, and it doesn't have to be.
It's not a practical weapon. It's basically just a big symbol. And I think that's why the treaty is so effective, because you fight symbols with other symbols.
La campaña internacional para abolir las armas nucleares fue lanzada por personas que consideraron que las armas nucleares producen en los seres humanos un sufrimiento indecible, que producen una catástrofe humanitaria inaceptable.
So we established this campaign around 2006, and we felt that the specific objective needed to be a treaty that outlawed nuclear weapons completely.
So we're about 11 years old now, and was very much inspired by the campaign to ban landmines and the Cluster Munitions Coalition.
El procedimiento en Naciones Unidas sigue su curso y ahora hace falta que 50 países ratifiquen el tratado para que entre en vigor. Eso no quiere decir que al día siguiente las armas nucleares desaparezcan, pero es el principio del fin.
We Hibakusha had been waiting for the ban for 72 years. Let this be the beginning of the end of nuclear weapons.
La historia de las armas nucleares es corta. En el tiempo de la Segunda Guerra Mundial, varios científicos revelaron que era posible fabricar una bomba de enorme potencia a partir de la fisión del átomo. El ejército alemán podría tener éxito en sus investigaciones y hacerse con un arma definitiva.
At the moment of surrender, Hitler had in the blueprint stage transoceanic rockets, which could have destroyed our city.
La administración norteamericana lo toma como una cuestión de supervivencia y destina unos recursos ingentes a la construcción de la bomba atómica. Pero cuando en el primer ensayo, en el desierto de Nuevo México, un sol en miniatura anuncia el inicio de la era nuclear, el ejército alemán ya se había rendido. La decisión de usar la bomba sobre ciudades japonesas se toma en una nueva situación marcada por el fin de la guerra y el reparto del mundo entre las potencias vencedoras. En la Segunda Guerra Mundial, los ejércitos masacran a la población civil al arrasar ciudades enteras sin piedad. Estos bombardeos ya anticipan el horror nuclear. El 6 de agosto de 1945, una bomba de uranio es lanzada sobre Hiroshima.
At that moment, I saw in the window the tremendous flash. And I couldn't comprehend But before you had a chance to comprehend what was happening, I knew my body was flying up in the air. After that, I lost consciousness. Now, when I regained the consciousness in the total darkness and silence, I knew, finally, Americans got us. I couldn't move my body, so I knew I faced death. But I wasn't panic-stricken at all. Then all of a sudden, a strong hand touched me from behind. Don't give up, don't give up. Keep moving, I'm trying to free you. You see the light coming from that opening, and move toward it as quickly as possible. Now, I'm trying to free you. Come on, keep pushing, keep kicking. Finally, he was able to free me. Also, it happened at 8:15 in the morning. It was dark, dark like twilight. And then I began to see in the dark some moving objects. But they were so silent. They didn't look like human beings. The hair was standing up and all curled up, and skin and flesh were just falling out. Some were carrying the eyeballs in their hands, the skin and the flesh hanging. The majority of my schoolmates were working in the center part of the city. They are the first one who simply vaporized, melted. From my school, over 300 students were there. I'm alive because I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. For, 1 mile away, I was inside a building. I was buried by the collapsed building. I must have been protected. But those people had no protection directly under.
La explosión produce un sufrimiento indecible y nadie puede asistir a los heridos. 3 días después, una bomba de plutonio será lanzada sobre Nagasaki. A las personas que mueren inmediatamente se irán sumando durante mucho tiempo las víctimas de la radiación.
So you can imagine the situation when the ICRC, so our doctors and delegates happened upon the scene in Hiroshima. Out of 300 doctors present in Hiroshima, 270 had died. Out of 1,700 nurses, 1,600 had been killed. And out of some 140 pharmacists, 120 had been killed. So the original number of fatalities in Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of 1945 was 140,000 in Hiroshima and 70,000 in Nagasaki. Those figures increased between 2- and 3-fold in the next 5 years due to radiation sickness from radiation exposure.
In the first second, the white light is blinding, the heat immense. In the first day, fires consume the city and there's no way to fight them. Your skin is badly charred. In the first week, those hospitals that are still functioning are overwhelmed and can't treat the injured. Others who seem fine suddenly fall ill and die from radiation sickness. In the first year, radiation has seeped into the water and the soil. Crops and animals are contaminated. The humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons are horrific and span generations. It's time to ban them now.
A corto plazo vamos a tener efectos por básicamente 4 cosas. La onda expansiva, te va a hacer unos vientos huracanados que destruyen todo a su paso y que convierten a todo, incluso los mismos cuerpos humanos, en proyectiles. Luego se produce una onda de calor en el orden de los millones de grados centígrados, que lo que esté más cerca o dentro de las partes más calientes de esa onda se evaporan, se vaporizan. O sea, el efecto que depende de la dosis de la radiación y el que depende solamente de la exposición a la radiación gamma. Ante una exposición bastante grande, los efectos pueden durar horas o incluso días. Hay una destrucción masiva de los órganos internos. A las dosis medianas pueden durar meses o años recuperándose de lesiones si es que se recuperan. Y si se logran recuperar, entonces hablamos de los efectos crónicos, que sería una incidencia mucho más alta de varios tipos de cáncer, especialmente la leucemia, el cáncer de tiroides, cáncer de mama.
For example, my uncle and aunt, when we heard they survived, we rejoiced. But a week later, they started feeling so sick. They started vomiting on, and they started having purple spots all over the body. And that was a sure sign they are going to die.
La bomba nuclear produce una onda electromagnética que interrumpiría la comunicación electrónica, afectaría muchísimos aparatos de los cuales dependemos ahora actualmente, especialmente los hospitales.
And a lot of people suffered with a scar, a very bad scar. They didn't look nice. So some thoughtless people started calling them all their ghosts and so on. Social alienation, yeah. And discrimination was real. So those girls with that kind of, they lost the opportunity for equal treatment for anything, employment, marriage, housing, and whatnot. So it was not just the physical damage, but the social, psychological, in every way. The city just disappeared.
Se justifica el uso de la bomba como un mal necesario para alcanzar el fin del conflicto rápidamente. Pero esto ahora es cuestionado por los historiadores.
Recent research shows that it's highly unlikely that the Japanese surrendered because of nuclear weapons. They surrendered because the Soviets came into the war. The night before we bombed Nagasaki, the Soviet Union declares war. It significantly changes our view of nuclear weapons writ large because Hiroshima was the first impression. It was the notion that set up all the subsequent thinking. And if we change how we think about Hiroshima, it changes everything.
A partir de entonces, cualquier potencia que no tuviera armas nucleares se sentiría vulnerable. En los años siguientes, la Unión Soviética, Reino Unido, Francia y China desarrollarán sus propias bombas atómicas en un contexto de enfrentamiento entre el bloque occidental y el bloque del este, una etapa conocida como Guerra Fría. También este es el tiempo en que se fundaron las Naciones Unidas en un intento de crear un foro de mediación que evitara que los conflictos llegaran a la confrontación armada. Los Estados miembros también firmaron la Carta de los Derechos Humanos, unos derechos universales por encima de los intereses o la fuerza de las partes. Sin embargo, estas aspiraciones fueron cediendo terreno a una cruda realidad, la de grandes potencias que dominan el planeta por la fuerza y lo ponen en peligro con una irresponsable carrera armamentística.
The United Nations had been working to address the threat of nuclear weapons since its foundation. The very first resolution adopted by the UN General Assembly was for the total elimination of all weapons adaptable to mass destruction. And yet it took all that time to finally put in place a total ban on the weapons.
Se fueron realizando ensayos nucleares con bombas cada vez más potentes hasta llegar al número de 2000. Se calcula que la radiación de estos ensayos ha afectado a millones de personas.
And in order to test nuclear weapons, primarily they've been tested on the lands of indigenous people. They've been tested on the lands of those without power, and that's deliberate.
So in the 1950s and 1960s, nuclear weapons were tested in Australia by the British government with the full support of the Australian government. And this has had a profound impact, particularly on the indigenous communities that live nearby. And even though the tests stopped decades ago, the consequences are still being felt today.
En Japón, el ejército de los Estados Unidos fotografió y midió todo incluso las consecuencias de la radiación sobre los cuerpos y la salud humana. Pero todo esto era desconocido por la gente común. Se censuró toda la información, así como los testimonios de los supervivientes, por bastante tiempo.
Later on, the United States established something called ABCC, Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So people were so happy. Finally, we were going to get some medical attention, medical supply. But no, the sole purpose of those was to study the effect of radiation on human body, but not to give supply or help, medical help. When people found that out, you can imagine, they felt, oh, they are simply using us as guinea pig. And then there was quite a bit of oppression, so people were not that free. Even the press were not free to write about. And not only that, they started confiscating personal things among the survivors. Some people kept the diaries, or the pictures, photographs, slides, all kinds of, but those things were too dangerous. They were all confiscated, 32,000 items in all, and they were shipped back to Washington.
Tampoco era conocido por los norteamericanos hasta que algunos periodistas valientes burlaron la censura y entonces la gente supo del horror nuclear. Las armas nucleares se justificaron como armas defensivas. Es la doctrina de la disuasión. Se supone que la bomba nuclear disuade al enemigo de atacar. En el caso de los dos bloques de la Guerra Fría, la destrucción mutua asegurada sería el garante de la paz y la seguridad mundial. Sin embargo, desde la Segunda Guerra Mundial ha habido varias ocasiones en las que la confrontación ha estado a punto de terminar en guerra nuclear. La más conocida es la crisis de los misiles en Cuba. Se rozó la guerra abierta y varios asesores del presidente Kennedy aconsejaban invadir la isla e incluso usar las armas nucleares. Finalmente, se dio un paso atrás en el último momento y la alarma vivida creó la condición para los primeros acuerdos de limitación de los ensayos nucleares.
So deterrence, the notion that nuclear weapons have kept us safe during crises is simply historically inaccurate. The nuclear believers often say deterrence has been perfect because there's been no nuclear war. It's a ludicrous argument on the face of it. In 1948, the Soviets blockaded Berlin, and it's a situation which could easily have led to nuclear war. The United States had a monopoly on nuclear weapons, but the Soviets weren't deterred. In 1950, the Chinese joined the Korean War despite the US moving nuclear weapons to Guam, and so on. You say deterrence has never failed. Clearly it has. If human beings are fallible and if human beings are involved in nuclear deterrence, then nuclear deterrence, by definition, is inherently flawed. It will fail. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when.
Al peligro del uso intencional se suma el riesgo de accidente. Actualmente hay 2.000 armas nucleares en alerta, es decir, que pueden ser disparadas en minutos. En 1983, los sistemas de radar de la URSS confundieron varias nubes con un ataque con misiles.
So many stories of near misses, and this Colonel Petrov from Russia, who was such a hero, he was in the missile silo and he saw something that indicated that they were being attacked by us, and he was supposed to unleash all his bombs against New York and Boston, and he waited, and it was a computer glitch. And he even got reprimanded for not following orders. It's like we're just lucky. We're living in a fantasy.
We know of at least 6 occasions when the world has come within minutes of nuclear war because deterrence failed, because one or the other nuclear weapons state, usually the United States or Russia, believed it was under attack and actually began the process of launching its own nuclear weapons, only to stop at the very last minute when the mistake was discovered. 6 times that we know about that this has happened. This is an insanely dangerous situation.
Todas aquellas herramientas, en este caso armas, que inventamos, se acaban usando. Cuando hay una probabilidad de 1 por 1000, tú dejas pasar suficiente tiempo y se produce el hecho del 1 por 1000, ¿no?
En 1968 se firma el Tratado de No Proliferación Nuclear por la gran mayoría de los estados soberanos. El mismo trata de restringir la posesión de armas nucleares y detener su proliferación, pero no ilegaliza su posesión a los 5 estados que en esta fecha ya habían realizado ensayos.
And 5 countries, the US, Russia, China, England, and France, promised to give up their nuclear weapons if all the rest of the world wouldn't get them. And everybody signed this treaty except India, Pakistan, and Israel, and they went and got their own bombs.
For about 70 years, we had sort of an international legal system that accepted that 5 countries have it. It didn't reject nuclear weapons. It did say that we should work towards disarmament, but it also kind of acknowledged that, well, these countries have them so far, and they are kind of important for security for them. And that's just not it's just not good enough for law. You can't have an apartheid law that treats people differently or countries differently. You have to have the same rules for everyone, otherwise it's inconsistent and it's not going to work.
La proliferación nuclear y el avance tecnológico crean nuevos peligros. Existe la posibilidad de que un pequeño grupo pueda fabricar una bomba. También existe el peligro de que en un país con armas nucleares se den fracturas internas o desbordes sociales y las armas dejen de estar bajo un control seguro. Los sistemas informáticos también pueden ser hackeados. Por último, una explosión sobre una central nuclear crearía una contaminación masiva incontenible.
Millions of people would be exposed to lethal doses of radiation, and tens of millions of people would be exposed to doses of radiation that would put them at increased risk for cancer should they survive the immediate post-war period. So this is an enormous problem, and one which is generally ignored completely.
Incluso un conflicto circunscrito a una zona reducida tendría consecuencias globales sobre miles de millones de personas.
The global consequences come from climate disruption. 100 Hiroshima-sized bombs going off over 100 cities cause 100 firestorms, and they loft about 5.5 million tons of soot into the upper atmosphere, which blocks out the sun, cools the planet, dries the planet, and as a result of this disruption of food production, this limited war would, we believe, trigger a worldwide famine that would put up to 2 billion people at risk of starvation.
En los años 80, la carrera armamentística estaba llegando a su apogeo. Se fabricaban cada año miles de cabezas nucleares y se alcanzó un total de 70.000, suficientes para destruir el planeta varias veces. Desde el principio de la era nuclear, las advertencias y protestas iniciadas en la comunidad científica se sucedieron unas a otras y pronto saltaron a la calle. Fueron pioneras las integrantes de Mujeres por la Paz al manifestarse públicamente en Estados Unidos contra las armas nucleares, cuando en noviembre de 1961 hicieron huelga y marcharon en 60 ciudades.
So women have always been at the forefront of anti-war activism. The Women's International League for Peace and Freedom was actually founded in 1915 during a war, during World War I, and it was founded by women from all over the world. Women were instrumental in the 1960s campaigning for a nuclear weapon test ban treaty, collecting baby teeth to show the effects that atmospheric nuclear testing was having on the environment and on children and on citizens throughout the world.
En Europa, los pacifistas organizan en varios lugares marchas y protestas contra las bases que albergan armas nucleares. Algunas de las más numerosas tuvieron lugar en Reino Unido, donde la campaña por el desarme nuclear organizaba marchas de protesta desde 1959 y creó el símbolo que ha quedado asociado con la paz. En 1982 se reunieron 1 millón de personas contra las armas nucleares en Nueva York. Un año más tarde, en Europa hubo protestas multitudinarias en diferentes ciudades, sumando unos 3 millones de personas. En los años 80 se contemplaba la posibilidad de una guerra nuclear circunscrita a Europa, donde ambos bandos tenían instaladas una enorme cantidad de armas nucleares de corto alcance. Ejercicios militares creaban un ambiente prebélico. La tensión era máxima y el clima social a veces se tornaba apocalíptico.
They had a march in Kazakhstan that was led by this Kazakh poet Olza Suleymanov, because the people in the Soviet Union were so upset in Kazakhstan. They had so much cancer and birth defects and waste in their community, and they marched and stopped nuclear testing. Gorbachev said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore.
En Zaragoza teníamos una base norteamericana y por tanto éramos objetivo nuclear evidente. Promovimos lo que fue la primera movilización pacifista poderosa en España, a la base norteamericana, que fueron 30 kilómetros de cadena humana, más de 30.000 personas.
A movement in Europe, in the Soviet Union, here in North America, stopped that march to war. We reversed the Cold War arms race, and I believe that we saved the world.
Pero la conmoción que provocaron estas alarmas y la protesta social creó las condiciones para que se diera una sucesión de tratados y reducciones efectivas del arsenal nuclear. El punto de inflexión se dio cuando Reagan y Gorbachev se reunieron 2 veces a mediados de los 80. Pese a las dificultades, en 1987 se firmó el Tratado de Fuerzas Nucleares de alcance intermedio que ponía fin a los euromisiles. Esta tendencia al desarme siguió a principios de los 90 con los tratados de reducción de armas de largo alcance. El movimiento pacifista se va desactivando con la relajación de las alarmas, aunque realmente el peligro nuclear permanece sobre nuestras cabezas. En todo este tiempo se han ido declarando como zonas libres de armas nucleares vastas zonas del planeta. En 1991, Sudáfrica adhirió al Tratado de No Proliferación y comenzó el desmantelamiento de sus 6 bombas. Ucrania, Bielorrusia y Kazajistán cedieron a la Federación Rusa las armas nucleares heredadas de la Unión Soviética. El Pacto de Varsovia se ha disuelto y a principios de los 90 se da por terminada la Guerra Fría. Ha habido una distensión, pero pocos años después las cosas vuelven a complicarse. A pesar de haber desaparecido el enemigo que le dio origen, la OTAN continúa y se expande.
Reagan said to Gorbachev, don't worry, let East Germany be united, West Germany enter into NATO, and we promise you we will not expand NATO 1 inch to the east.
La justificación del armamentismo fue girando hacia el pretendido peligro de los llamados estados canalla. Se llevan adelante guerras y ocupaciones que no ayudan a crear las condiciones adecuadas para que los tratados de desarme avancen. En 1995, al no haberse cumplido el desarme previsto en 1968, la Conferencia de Revisión del Tratado de No Proliferación decide prorrogarlo indefinidamente, a cambio de crear una zona libre de armas de destrucción masiva en el Medio Oriente, algo que hasta el día de hoy no se ha cumplido. En este contexto, los intentos de crear redes internacionales de organizaciones antinucleares comienzan con la aparición de Abolición 2000.
And we got together and drafted our own statement. We asked for a treaty to eliminate nuclear weapons by the year 2000. We acknowledged the inextricable link between nuclear weapons and nuclear power, and asked for the phasing out of nuclear power and the establishment of an international renewable energy agency.
5 décadas después de entrar en vigor, el Tratado de No Proliferación no se ha cumplido en lo tocante al desarme.
The NPT commits states in Article 6 to nuclear disarmament, to effective measures towards nuclear disarmament.
Well, there's a loophole because it doesn't promise, like the chemical and biological weapons say they're prohibited, they're illegal, they're unlawful. The NPT just said we 5 countries will make good faith efforts, that's the language, to eliminate, for nuclear disarmament.
Aunque no haya aumentado el número de cabezas nucleares, se ha seguido invirtiendo en la modernización del arsenal.
Se están invirtiendo miles de millones de dólares al año. Actualmente 120.000 millones de dólares al año. Estamos usando muchísima plata, la plata con la que podríamos estar librando al mundo enteramente de la hambruna, dándole educación primaria para absolutamente todo el mundo.
Climate change, poverty, inequality. We can't be wasting billions of dollars on nuclear weapons.
Actualmente, los 9 países nucleares tienen casi 15.000 bombas y todas son más potentes que la de Hiroshima. La gran mayoría de las cabezas nucleares están en manos de Estados Unidos y la Federación Rusa. 5 países albergan bombas de Estados Unidos y 28 países más están comprometidos en alianzas nucleares. Pero la mayoría de los países no tienen armas nucleares ni pertenecen a alianza militar alguna, si bien comparten el riesgo derivado de una confrontación aun si ocurriera lejos de su territorio.
This is what re-energized so many governments, particularly in the global south, to take this issue up again. The idea that nuclear weapons do not respect borders, that even a single detonation would affect everyone, everywhere, was something that was very significant to these countries that have security interests when it comes to nuclear weapons.
Por otro lado, dentro de la ONU, varios países se unieron y lograron llevar adelante prohibiciones sobre diferentes tipos de armas, como las minas antipersona o las bombas de racimo. Estas prohibiciones alcanzaron el éxito, es decir, lograron que esas armas se dejaran de fabricar y usar, aún sin el apoyo a la prohibición por parte de las grandes potencias.
No one's saying that chemical or biological weapons are okay for certain countries but not others, and no one's saying that it's okay to be sheltering under a chemical weapon umbrella or a biological weapon umbrella.
En 1980 se creó la Asociación Internacional de Médicos para la Prevención de la Guerra Nuclear a partir de las consideraciones éticas que compartieron médicos de los dos bloques. Es esta asociación la que 26 años más tarde lanzará la campaña internacional para abolir las armas nucleares.
Basically, I think what drove all of us was this idea that nuclear weapons pose the greatest threat to public health in the history of the world, and that as physicians, we have a responsibility to address that problem, because all the things that we do for our patients in the course of our daily practice are going to be for naught if the world blows up in a nuclear war.
Esta campaña exige negociar un tratado amplio, irreversible, vinculante y verificable de acuerdo con la mayoría de los países. A partir de 2010, cambia el enfoque basándose en la catástrofe humanitaria que provocan las armas nucleares y no en criterios de seguridad de los estados, que era la narrativa dominante hasta entonces.
All of the states party to the Non-Proliferation Treaty agreed by consensus that any use of nuclear weapons would have catastrophic humanitarian consequences, and nuclear weapons must be considered through the lens of international humanitarian law.
That really opened up space for an examination of the humanitarian effects of nuclear weapons once again.
And at the same time, there's also started these joint statements at the UN. 16 governments got together to acknowledge the catastrophic humanitarian consequences, saying that any use of nuclear weapons would have this, and under no circumstances should nuclear weapons be used. And this was quite, like a radical, but sort of slowly, quite silently changing the narrative.
Este nuevo enfoque abría la participación a los países no poseedores, al mundo académico y a la sociedad civil. En 2013, en Oslo, diplomáticos de 128 estados se reúnen para estudiar el impacto humanitario de las armas nucleares y continúan en México al año siguiente desafiando el boicot de las 5 potencias nucleares. Se están cambiando las reglas del juego.
It was the first time that you'd even organize something that the P5 didn't support. But we had the Civil Society Forum, the ICANN Civil Society Forum, on the eve of this big conference. And we had the then State Secretary of Norway, Gry Larsen. And she talked about, in front of 600 ICANN people in the audience, talked about the boycott. Well, they've been very angry, the P5. They came and they demarched us and said, this is a distraction. And she just sort of shrugged her shoulders and said, well, their arguments weren't very convincing. And the whole audience laughed, and it was the first time we laughed at the P5. And, right there, it just clicked like, oh my God, this is all about changing power dynamics, and this is all about controlling the narrative, and we're doing something and they're on the outside.
Lots of new evidence was unveiled, and we heard very poignantly and prominently from the survivors, the Hibakusha, and also the nuclear test survivors.
Looking at the effects of an explosion, what this does to human bodies, what this does to cities, but also what it does to our economies and our way of life. Looking at the connections between the impacts and also the risks that we currently face, both in terms of intentional use of nuclear weapons, but also the risks from failures in command and control structures or accidental use of nuclear weapons.
Well, in Oslo, we presented evidence about our inability to provide an adequate humanitarian response in case of use of nuclear weapons.
No equipment exists to protect them from some of the radiation seeping through. Can you justify putting even more people at risk? Even if you get in, the number of victims is beyond anything you've ever seen.
I was in Nayarit, Mexico, at the second conference that led to the treaty, and there was a moment in the afternoon on the last day that was amazing. 70 years, the nuclear-armed states have told everyone else, we'll manage this, you stay home. Don't worry about this, we've got it. And I think it was at that moment that the rest of the world woke up and said, this will affect us. We have a right, we have an obligation to have our voices heard on this.
En 2014, con la tercera conferencia en Austria, una masa crítica de países apoya el llamado compromiso humanitario por el que se responsabilizan de llevar a cabo esfuerzos para estigmatizar, prohibir y eliminar las armas nucleares.
The conclusion was that there was a legal gap. There was no prohibition in place on nuclear weapons, and that was a problem. And Austria pledged to work to fill the legal gap.
La vía del desarrollo del Tratado de No Proliferación parece agotada, a la vez que la de la prohibición completa de las armas nucleares se abre paso. En 2016 se crea un grupo de trabajo abierto en la ONU que acaba en la propuesta de la prohibición.
It's a very complicated way to say we'll have a bunch of meetings where we're going to talk about what we can do to get rid of nuclear weapons. We had pushed and we've done all the work, and we've been reaching out to governments, and we've held regional meetings, we've been talking to parliamentarians, and we've been nagging for like 3 years. And at the Open Ended Working Group, it's almost like you pulled out a plug and the support just came out from everyone.
And so by the end of this meeting in 2016, we had well over 100 countries going on the record saying that they wanted the General Assembly to negotiate a treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons.
That's the government side of what happened. But behind the scenes and in the streets and through creative actions, people have been pushing and pushing and pushing to make sure this happened. This wasn't just a couple of people in suits saying, oh, let's have some meetings.
En 2017, el tratado concentra muchos apoyos. Las negociaciones se llevan a cabo bajo la conducción de Elaine White Gómez de Costa Rica.
De Costa Rica, que es un país que decidió desde hace 70 años tener un enfoque distinto hacia la paz y la seguridad, aboliendo sus fuerzas armadas. Entonces, eso implica para un país como nosotros, que nosotros pusimos toda nuestra confianza en un sistema internacional que a través de las reglas y de las instituciones podemos resolver los conflictos y los problemas de la humanidad.
In the course of the humanitarian initiative and the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, again, women have been instrumental. We had several women diplomats that were leaders for their countries. We had some all-women delegations also participating in the negotiations. We had women that were very active in the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons.
Hay, digamos, dos enfoques cuando uno conversa sobre el tema de la participación de las mujeres. La primera de ellas, somos miembros de la humanidad, tenemos derecho de participar. También contribuimos desde la perspectiva de nuestra propia vivencia. Hay una contribución desde tener una perspectiva distinta que refuerce los procesos de negociación.
I don't believe that women are more peaceful than men inherently, but I think that women play certain roles in society. If your main perspective is, feeding people, providing healthcare to people, education to children. That's going to be your perspective on decision to go to war and use certain types of weapons.
Además, se escucha la voz de los seres humanos afectados.
Each person had a name. Each person was loved by someone. Let us ensure that their deaths were not in vain.
Estamos hablando de seres humanos que en su experiencia humana, en esta vida, han conocido los horrores de lo que estamos tratando de solucionar. Eso le dio a la conferencia un espíritu un sentido de ética y de justicia que no habría sido posible si ellos no estuvieran allí.
Well, my job is to share my experience in Hiroshima and what it means to live in nuclear age, what horror that brings to humanity, and we should never ever let that happen again to another human being. That's my message, and I can't stop talking about it. I am going to keep talking.
En julio, 122 países, unos 2/3 del total, votan a favor del Tratado de Prohibición. A partir de entonces, el tratado debe reunir 50 ratificaciones para entrar en vigor.
The treaty includes a broad range of prohibitions, a prohibition, of course, on the use of nuclear weapons, as well as the threatened use of nuclear weapons, a prohibition on testing and production of nuclear weapons, and indeed a prohibition on the possession of nuclear weapons. It also says that a country cannot assist another country to engage in any of these kinds of activities.
But then it also demands that you help survivors of nuclear detonations and help to clean up the environment after detonation. And I think that's really important language. It also has quite progressive language on gender, both encouraging participation of women in all decision-making around nuclear weapons, and also recognizes the gendered impact of nuclear weapons.
I think we will move to a point where the taboo against nuclear weapons is as strong as the taboo against other weapons of mass destruction.
If this treaty was insignificant, if it didn't mean anything, why were they fighting it?
I also think it's really shown the power of civil society and governments working together. We stood up to some of the most powerful, most heavily militarized countries on this planet and did something that they were forbidding us to do.
The ability to kill massive amounts of people and inflict suffering and pain on civilians is not a sign of power and prestige. It's what dictators do, it's what human rights violators do, not respectable countries that want to have a good standing in the international community. And now it's their turn to be on the outside. They're going to have to justify why they want weapons of mass destruction, why they think threatening to mass murder civilians or end us all, collective suicide, is a reasonable security strategy.
El premio Nobel concedido a ICANN viene a reforzar y difundir la campaña aún más.
And the headlines were Nobel Peace Prize comes to Utrecht. A little bit, which is exactly what it was. And it's such a great thing because we get to celebrate as a campaign of 500 organizations in 100 countries. And
it's a huge validation for the work that those campaigners are doing in whatever context. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that I felt immediately after. Just seeing our campaigners, these different, all across the world, get on TV, take ownership of this amazing moment that had happened and really be elevated and validated for their hard work over the years.
Para que el tratado sea ratificado en el mayor número de países posible, es importante la presión social, el compromiso parlamentario, el apoyo de las ciudades, la desinversión, la difusión y la movilización son necesarias para que la prohibición tome cuerpo y después la presión debe seguir hasta que la estigmatización de las armas nucleares termine en una erradicación real.
ICANN also has what's called the Parliamentary Pledge, which is signed by over 800 parliamentarians across the world. And it's a pledge to work to bring the treaty into force in that country.
Parliamentarians are the representatives of the people, and they have a huge role to play in shifting government position.
Everyone can write to their senator or diputado, wherever they are, and get them to endorse the parliamentary pledge.
Y disponemos de una red de parlamentarios, tanto en el Congreso como en el Senado, en apoyo de la campaña y de las posiciones del ICANN, ¿no? En pro del Tratado de Prohibición de Armas Nucleares, y en estos momentos están 92 parlamentarios.
So the ICANN Cities Appeal is a commitment that cities can make to endorse the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons and call on their governments to join. Nuclear weapons are designed to be city destroyers, to have the maximum impact, to destroy as many lives and as much infrastructure as possible.
Porque las bombas nucleares y los misiles están dirigidos a las ciudades, ¿no? Es una amenaza a la gente que vive en cada ciudad. Luego es misión del ayuntamiento que esté preocupado por luchar contra la violencia, defender a sus ciudadanos y a sus vecinos y vecinas frente a la amenaza nuclear.
We went to our city council to divest. We spoke to the finance chair of the council, and he said he would write a letter to the comptroller who controls all the investments for the pensions of the city, which billions of dollars, you know. If we could get 10 members of the council to sign on with him. I mean, I called my councilman, and they told me he was on paternity leave. He had his first child, so I wrote him a long letter saying, what a wonderful gift to your child to have a nuclear-free world if you would sign this letter, and he signed.
It only takes a few people to organize with city council. It only takes a few people to organize an event at your local library or a church or a school, to have a conversation and to make a difference to policy, because all of this trickles up to policy making.
La iniciativa No inviertas en la bomba trata de dificultar la financiación de las empresas implicadas en la producción de armas nucleares.
And what Don't Bank on the Bomb does is it gives everyone a pathway to resist nuclear weapons. People might not know this, but private companies make key components for nuclear weapons. And in order for them to be able to do that, they need financing from banks and pension funds. If you have a bank account, you can do something about nuclear weapons. You can talk to your bank and ask them, do they have a policy on investment? If you have a pension fund, is your pension fund profiting from the production of nuclear weapons? And if they are, why? You have a right as a consumer, you have power to do something, to change that. And people are.
I also learned that the stigmatizing effect goes beyond law, but it also can have economic impacts, which are extremely powerful when we're dealing with the production and sale of weapon systems.
Estados Unidos cerró su última fábrica de municiones en racimo sin haber nunca firmado la convención en contra de las municiones en racimo.
You know, the U.S. never signed the landmines treaty, but we don't make them anymore and we don't use them.
The decision to ban nuclear weapons will be a courageous one. It will change the world. There are billions of reasons why we need to ban nuclear weapons now. Each and every one of them has a name, a story, and a dream.
El tratado es una herramienta bastante potente, pero el desarme nuclear no va a llegar con la firma de un tratado. Necesitamos de un movimiento global. Necesitamos que la gente entienda, de generar conciencia a nivel de todo el mundo.
El primer punto de la primera marcha mundial fue tratar de luchar para conseguir que se erradicaran las armas nucleares. Lo mismo que están erradicadas las químicas y las bacteriológicas.
Objetivo, volver a poner en la agenda la cuestión de la no violencia y la cuestión de acabar con las armas nucleares. La marcha lo que va es a recorrer durante varios meses un montón de países, dar la vuelta al mundo.
La prohibición de las armas nucleares es un clamor que une a los pueblos para defender a las personas por encima de los grandes poderes. Más allá de las fronteras, comienza a dibujarse una nación humana universal, un mundo sin guerras, sin violencia, seres humanos en armonía con el medio ambiente, con derechos, a la vez que construyendo un sistema económico justo. Será un mundo que combine la diversidad de etnias, lenguas y culturas en un hermoso mosaico.
En la historia humana estamos en permanente evolución y los cambios importantes no se dan de la noche a la mañana. Si las personas que estaban luchando por el fin de la esclavitud hubieran pensado que aprobando una ley o un tratado en un lugar muy específico no se iba a lograr, no tendríamos hoy lo que tenemos. Estamos en un proceso de transición y de cambio estructural. La comunidad internacional ya ha atravesado por esas etapas antes. Si nos vamos a la norma contra el colonialismo, se dio en momentos en que el colonialismo estaba en su máxima expresión.
We've seen throughout history that making change has been the result of people coming together collectively, whether that's been the civil rights movement or women's right to vote, or ending slavery or ending apartheid. It's all been collective people's action that has changed the world.
I mean, just imagine how quickly the world has changed its mind on other things. Things like gay marriage, that was very controversial and unacceptable to many, and then very quickly it just changed. And I think it can be the same thing with nuclear weapons. That it's just like, oh my God, remember when we did that? Remember when we had these like crazy suicide bombs and like we just thought that it was normal?
Un día la era nuclear quedará en nuestra memoria como un mal sueño que surgió en un momento de temor y destrucción. Una vez más, reencontramos nuestro camino en la historia y es precisamente en nuestros tropiezos y momentos de confusión cuando vuelve a manifestarse una dirección evolutiva que nos orienta desde la noche de los tiempos. Reconocemos que la vida de cada ser humano es sagrada y rechazamos con todo nuestro ser las armas nucleares, porque producen en los seres humanos un daño y sufrimiento inenarrables.
But, politics changes constantly. We're in a political climate right now that would have been totally unthinkable many years ago. And that doesn't only have to be negative. It can also be positive changes. It can also be quick changes in issues that we thought were intransigent for a long time. And nuclear weapons is part of that.
Working on nuclear disarmament is definitely a passion for me. It is my heart and soul, I think. The whole project of abolishing war, of challenging violence. And it really comes from a place of believing that it is possible to change the world that we're living in.
Para mí lo que me motiva es la esperanza y de que se puede hacer el cambio y la convicción de que hay que hacerlo, de que hay que hacer cosas, de que esto no está bien.
I'm really and constantly inspired by the people I get to work with, because people who choose to spend their energy on nuclear weapons are not seeking fame and fortune. They're seeking to make the world better for themselves and for coming generations.
To have the opportunity to work with such talented and passionate people, to be part of a historic process that will have implications for the security and welfare of future generations is a great privilege and honour. And I couldn't think of anything else that I would prefer to be doing.
These weapons are not, they're not a force of nature, they're not an act of God. We have built these weapons, we know how to take them apart. And I think it's important for us all to understand, no one of us is going to do this by ourselves. But if each one of us does that part of the job which is ours to do, we can be successful again as we were in the 80s, and we can save the world again. And we can look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, okay, I did what I was supposed to do.
We Hibakusha had been waiting for the ban for 72 years. Let this be the beginning of the end of nuclear weapons.